Alrighty. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the wolfSSL 2020 Roadmap presented by our very own wolfSSL CTO, Todd Ouska. My name is Kajal, and I will be moderating this webinar. All attendees will be in listen-only mode. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, so please feel free to enter any questions into the Q&A box to be addressed during the Q&A time. This webinar will also be recorded and made available via a YouTube link following the presentation. And now, without further ado, I present Todd.
Hi, thanks everyone for being here. This is a good opportunity for us for wolfSSL to share our roadmap items for 2020 and for the future. You know, we really want our users to be aware of the new features we're thinking about, we're going to be adding, and things we're planning on over the year. It's also a good venue for us to solicit feedback on wish list items that you may have. So we can get into that at the end. There are a few intro slides here. And this is helpful for those of you maybe who don't have a good idea of other use cases or other areas where wolfSSL is used. This slide shows some of the verticals that wolfSSL is deployed in, which is to say that we don't target any specific vertical. We're used in any and all verticals requiring a high level of security. Just taking a quick look here, you can see that we're in everything from IoT to industrial automation, smart cars, databases, just to name a few. Which is really to say, again, that security is becoming ubiquitous, and we're here to help with that. The three main areas our users are using our security products. The first one there, data in transit, is our flagship products, wolfSSL, wolfSSH, securing data. One thing to note is we are transport agnostic. We don't care if it's TCP, UDP, Bluetooth, serial. A more recent area, our users have also been utilizing wolfSSL wolfcrypt to secure data at rest, whether that's a file, database, or a custom object. The point here is that people aren't just using us to secure the data in transit, but also pre or post transit. And that last use case there is kind of a combination of the first two, secure firmware updates. So potentially you can use, number one, the data in transit to move the firmware securely. Maybe you want to keep it encrypted or secure at rest before booting or for the follow-up boot, and a complete firmware update system would combine all of those together. And we'll talk a little bit more about our newest product, wolfboot, to help with that. And this slide just highlights the growth of the company. And really it focuses on customers, partners, secure connections, and employees, all of which are rising. So we're excited about the growth potential as well. And like we mentioned in the vertical slide, that more and more products are utilizing connectivity and the security that goes along with it, which is driving the growth and use case as well. This slide is a good example of our products, language wrappers, and some example use cases. Just quickly in the top there, some of the wolfSSL products that we have that you may not be aware of. On the upper left, our flagship product in green, wolfSSL. That of course includes wolfcrypt. And then to the right of it, some people only utilize wolfcrypt as a standalone product. And that has some variations from FIPS 140-2 for government use cases, avionics DIA 178 use cases. And we also have an asynchronous crypto version for highly scalable server-side use cases. The next one there in the green is Wolf MQTT, which is our lightweight MQTT client. We'll talk about that a little more coming up. And our wolfSSH lightweight SSH server, which follows in the pattern of wolfSSL wolfcrypt. It's low resource, small footprint, easy to use on embedded devices. And then the last couple there, our newest wolftpm is a lightweight, low resource TPM library where the reference TPM module may not be easily used in something like secure boot, or may assume a more full-featured system than some of our users have. And lastly, the wolfboot is our newest product, and it's our secure bootloader, which uses wolfcrypt to check the integrity and authentication of the image before booting it with redundancies and backup. And we'll talk a little bit more about that one as well. In the middle there, you can see some of the language wrappers that we support. While all of our products and most of our users are C programmers, we understand and realize that not everyone is a C programmer. So we have Java wrappers in the form of JNI. We also have JSSE and JCE providers. We have C# wrappers for .NET programmers, Python, and JavaScript is one we'll be releasing this year as well. And then those bottom boxes just kind of highlight some example use cases where the products and language wrappers may be utilized. SSL proxy, TLS termination. In an appliance use case, would utilize wolfSSL and probably the asynchronous crypto. wolfSCEP would utilize wolfSSL and wolfcrypt, along with a lightweight HTTPS client. A secure update system would utilize potentially wolfSSL, wolfcrypt and wolfboot. And we do have a command line utility, wolfclue, that looks and feels like the OpenSSL command line utility that we're expanding. And then finally, those last two, curl and tinycurl. It's interesting to note that Daniel Stenberg, the maintainer and author of curl, is now working for wolfSSL, and we deployed the tinycurl last year, which is a implementation of curl designed like wolfSSL and wolfcrypt to run on low footprint, low resource devices where curl may otherwise not be a good fit. And that can, of course, utilize wolfSSL, wolfcrypt, wolfMQTT, wolfSSH. And then this is the last intro slide. And this just highlights our testing, why we're the best tested crypto available today. Our philosophy is to test early, often, and continuously. That is, we don't just do API and unit testing. We include several fuzzers, several static analyzers, dynamic analyzers, multiple sets of line of code that gets contributed to the core wolfSSL product. And we're also soliciting outside reviews from testing companies, universities, and researchers as well, all which gives us more confidence that we're releasing as a bug-free product as possible. And we're happy to talk in more depth and detail about our testing, and we have a couple blogs that go into more detail on each of these items if that's interesting to you. Let's go ahead and jump into the roadmap for this year. One thing that's important to our customers and to us is to have highly performant algorithms and protocols. This year, we're going to have a focus on increasing the performance of ECC P384. We're starting to see an uptick in use there versus the more standard current kind of de facto standard of the 256-bit curve. But as users are thinking more forward about security in the 3, 5, 10-year time frame, 384-bit curves and hashes are starting to become more common. So we're going to deploy some cycles to make sure we have an optimal implementation in Intel and ARM and embedded processors. Likewise, we want to make sure that the throughput of TLS 1.3, now that it's out and stable, we want to maximize that throughput as much as possible. And that's a use case that's relatively new for us compared to the last one there, which is handshake optimizations. Everyone wants the handshake to be as quick and low resource and highly performant as possible. But we also have users now who are pushing data through that pipe securely, and they want the throughput to be optimized as well. So we'll make a pass on the TLS 1.3 throughput this year. And this slide highlights our most recent FIPS certificate that we received last year. If you have a requirement from one of your customers for FIPS 140-2 level 1, we have 2 certificates out there with all the algorithms you'll need for TLS 1.3. Our latest certificate added AES GCM mode, ECC keys, RSA keygen, and SHA-3 to name a few. What's interesting to note here that we have included in the base certificate the ability to do hardware acceleration through coprocessors or separate devices, and we can extend that to new operating environments easily as well without having to do a new certificate. And we've already demonstrated that a few times for our customers. And I should also note that TLS 1.3, we have all the algorithms and ciphers needed in the FIPS certificate to have a TLS 1.3 FIPS deployment. And lastly is the roadmap item there, 140-3, the most recent version of FIPS will be coming out later this year in the fall. And we've already started that process, and we intend to submit as soon as the submissions open up in the September timeframe, if that schedule holds up. Another roadmap item that we look at every year and that's important for our customers is resource tuning. And for us, that takes on a few different areas. One thing we're going to do is release some more recipes for low footprint builds. We have some users who are not just using wolfcrypt, but are just using 2 or 3 or a handful of algorithms from wolfcrypt. And while the library is modular and we do have defines and files that make that easy to do, we're going to have some more recipes out of the box. For example, if someone just wants to build SHA-2 and ECC verify, having a recipe with the exact defines and files is going to make it a lot easier for people not having to jump into our support and kind of learn some of the low-level details of how the library is built. So we're excited about that. Another area that we will tune, particularly with TLS 1.3 this year, is the post-handshake resource use. We want to make sure that's as small as possible. That's particularly important both for our embedded users who don't have a lot of resources to begin with, but also for the server side or scalable users who are doing lots and lots of connections. And lastly, we'll make sure that our handshake resource use is as minimal as possible through holding the minimal resources possible and releasing those as early as possible. And that's something we'll be wrapping up this summer. And jumping into our Wolf MQTT product. We currently have examples for a few of the most common MQTT brokers out there, including Amazon, Microsoft, Eclipse Mosquito. What we don't currently have a Google Cloud example that our client can easily attach to. So while we don't anticipate having to port our client version of Wolf MQTT, we do want to have an easy to use as possible example ready and built. And that's what the goal of that item there is. The middle one is expanding our MQTT SN sensor network feature set. Currently, we just have the client. The next step there would be to add the gateway, kind of the middle box piece in the sensor network. And then the last item, which we haven't finalized, but we're certainly exploring, which is writing our own Wolf MQTT broker. So we can be on both sides of the connection and all 3 sides in the sensor network use case. And we've had a few people ask about the broker. So we're exploring, how much sense that makes to write our own and kind of test the demand. So if you're interested in having an MQTT broker from us, please let us know at the end of the webinar, or send us an email. And in terms of what we're looking at for wolfSSH this year, primarily we're going to be porting to more and more embedded systems, making sure the footprint stays low and the resource use stays low as well. We've thought about adding a Windows client app just to help admins. One of the most common use cases of SSH is an admin who just wants to log in, doesn't want to write code necessarily to an SSH library, but wants to type in some commands to look at something on a remote device, or push a script or something, or grab something. And Windows is one of the most common platforms to do that. So an easy way to extend our use case and allow people to easily look at, touch, and feel wolfSSH is to have a simple Windows client. And lastly there for wolfSSH, we're going to be adding some language wrappers. And that's primarily more useful for bigger systems. Deeply embedded systems aren't going to have Python or Java, but mid-case embedded systems and up to laptops certainly will. And we're starting to get asked more and more about language wrappers for wolfSSH. And in terms of ports, every year we look for areas where we can plug wolfSSL or wolfcrypt into an existing open source or commonly used third-party project that does a few things for us. It gives us exposure to those products. That allows our users to easily plug in wolfSSL or wolfcrypt into an existing application. And it also allows us to test common API use cases and allows us to streamline, make those easier to use, and potentially find edge case bugs as well. The first one there, WebKit, is a browser base. If you're not familiar with it, we currently have several web browser ports of wolfSSL, including Nginx, Apache, Lydie, but we don't have browsers currently being deployed with wolfSSL. So if we plug ourselves into WebKit, we'll have the ability to be deployed with several web browsers as well. So we're targeting that one. LibEvent, if you're not familiar with, is a portable, scalable, event-driven library for portability. And currently it uses OpenSSL as its crypto and TLS provider. We're going to plug in wolfSSL to make that easy for our users in libevent programming. The last one there, AutoSAR, is for automotive use cases. There's a couple different interfaces that we'll be inserting ourselves into so that automotive users who want to use wolfSSL or any crypto or security TLS in the AutoSAR implementation can easily pick up ours and get going with their project. Another area we focus on every year is increasing our use case ports, however you want to say it, for hardware acceleration. Some of the 4 or 5 we're targeting this year include adding Intel AVX3 instruction set, which allows us to do 512-bit math. And that will speed up things like SHA-20, SHA-3 512, SHA-2 512, for example. Another one we're looking at adding is the ST Micro, ST Safe. And we should be releasing that one within a month or two. The third one there, CryptoCell, is ARM's attempt at having a common platform API set for doing crypto acceleration on ARM-based platforms versus all the third-party implementers of ARM processors having their own unique one. We've done about 2/3 of the algorithms available in CryptoCell and should have that wrapped up by the summer. And lastly, the Renaissance RA platform, we actually just wrapped that one up, and that's available in the latest wolfSSL release. And if there's any hardware acceleration platforms you're starting to use or thinking about using, of course, let us know. We will, of course, want to be easy to use out of the box when you're thinking of doing acceleration. And for those who haven't thought about that, the acceleration gives a couple nice benefits. Typically, you're looking at a performance improvement on the order of 3 to 10 times, depending on the bit size and the implementation, but it also reduces code size by allowing the algorithm to be run on the hardware instead of in our software. So it's kind of a win-win when it's available and implemented correctly, which of course we spend time doing. And in terms of roadmap items for our wolfboot product, similar to wolfSSH, we're going to focus on some operating system ports. A few that we're targeting this year include MQX, ThreadX, and Micrium. And our wolfboot product is technically agnostic to the OS, host operating system, although it's it's nice for us to test that and also to have complete examples for a developer who's on one of those operating systems to be able to get going, kind of kickstart their project, so to speak. Another item we'll be adding is encryption of the firmware image itself, not just during transport with TLS or SSH or something, but the ability to do inline decryption of the image pre-boot. Another item we'll be adding is for our avionics users is a DO178C example of a secure boot system. Another item, we've been asked to provide, some more complete updates, examples of an update system utilizing our wolfSSH with something like SCP, secure copy, to transfer and get the secure firmware image itself. And I think that wraps up the wolfboot items we're focusing on this year. And next is our wolftpm library, which focuses on the TPM 2.0 version. An item we're currently in the middle of doing is parameter encryption. And that's helpful in case you have a malicious attacker looking at the bus or the messages going back and forth. Without parameter encryption, there's the ability to see some of the secrets or salt or something to help the attacker. And parameter encryption enhances security. We'll be adding more ports. We currently have several ports for Infineon and ST, but Nuvoton is one we'll be releasing as well, support for. And lastly, PCR measured boot is one we've been asked about a few times, and we'll be starting that project this summer as well. And the ABI safety is a new one for us. We added this last year, the application binary interface safety. And this is particularly helpful for our binary customers, whether they're doing operating systems or SDKs. And in that case, their end users may already have applications written utilizing our library, and they can't easily recompile, on the fly. And it's probably not even feasible. So our ABI safety layer, currently we have 50 of our core APIs in that allows someone to do a binary update of the operating system or SDK with a binary version of our library, and not forcing the end user to recompile their application utilizing our software. And the roadmap item for us this year is to expand that. So if there's APIs you're using and that's interesting to you and you want to see those added into our ABI layer, be sure and let us know. Otherwise, we'll take a guess based on examples and what we see from users. And like we talked about a little bit earlier, we get questions every week about full language wrappers for different systems. A couple we're focusing on this year include Go and Rust. And we'll start somewhat simple. We'll do some wolfcrypt examples. We'll wrap SHA-2, AES, RSA, ECC, and then maybe a simple TLS client or server example. And see if people utilize it. And if they ask for more and more features, that's a good sign for us, and we'll put some more time into it. But again, like I mentioned before, we realize not everyone's a C programmer or their project isn't utilizing C, and they need language wrappers to make it easy to plug our technology in. Oh, wrong way. The wolfcrypt separation's been on our roadmap for a couple of years, but we do want to wrap that one up before the end of the year. Currently, wolfcrypt is bundled in with wolfSSL. And that's a little confusing for the wolfcrypt only users because they end up with a package that includes documentation, examples, and code for wolfSSL for the TLS layer, which they're not even using. So making a subset of that package of wolfcrypt only for the wolfcrypt only users makes a lot of sense for them. But of course, we won't make it harder for the wolfSSL users. We'll still bundle it together so that we're not going to force someone to build two separate libraries and combine them themselves. So the wolfSSL users don't worry about that. That's just making it easier for our wolfcrypt users. And then I talked a little bit earlier briefly on curl, some options that, if you're a curl user, wolfSSL is offering support packages all the way up to and including 24/7 support. We also have consulting available, and that can help with integration into a new project. In the last item, it can be for porting to low resource, low footprint devices. Maybe it's custom tuning, increasing performance, benchmarking, some of the common things you would expect. So if you're using curl and you want commercial level support and/or consulting, be sure and let us know. We're starting to see an uptick in users in the tiny curl low footprint use case. And these are some other items we talked about in January about getting done this year. I'll touch on a few of them. The first one there was kind of a joke. At first we were talking about having our own Linux distribution, but it makes some sense, particularly for our FIPS users. Someone doing FIPS typically has to remove the default OpenSSL TLS crypto implementation that comes with Linux, as well as the kernel crypto that comes with Linux, and then plug in some other FIPS certified crypto into the kernel and into the operating system to be FIPS compliant for the whole system. And having our own distribution, which would simply rip out OpenSSL and the kernel crypto with wolfSSL and wolfcrypt, otherwise would look like a standard distribution. It's basically to make FIPS as easy as possible. The third one there, post-quantum, we'll be adding some additional algorithms. Our TLS layer does support the post-quantum TLS extension. We currently support the N-true cipher, but we'll be adding more post-quantum algorithms, certainly as NIST narrows down their list of potential candidates. Certificate compression is one we're hearing about more and more as public keys get bigger, as certificate chains get longer, and as some of the metadata in certificates is expanding. We certainly have some users who don't want that bandwidth coming over the initial connection of 8 or 10 or 12K in the certificate chain. So compressing the certificates and finding ways to reduce the certificates in the chain is helpful for a lot of our users. And we're going to pick one of those standards that's out there for compressing certificates and implement it. Our testing as a service is something we've been talking about doing, and that's the test rig that we deploy nightly that I mentioned earlier. And we're thinking about wrapping that up into a VM and bringing it on site to a customer. And that would be useful for a customer who has either custom hardware, a custom operating system, or maybe they've done some custom changes to wolfSSL that they can't contribute back to us for some reason. And if they have our full test rig, they're able to verify that their custom use case, either on the hardware, software, or our software, is fully tested to the same level that we do our own. wolfclue will be expanding our command line utility. And the last one there, DTLS 1.3, we've already started on. We hope that standard version gets standardized by the end of the year, and we anticipate being the first commercial version available of DTLS 1.3 when that is ready. So we're anxiously awaiting that. One item I mentioned a few times is for the avionics, our DO-178. We did receive our first cert kit back in February, and we're currently in the middle of working on our second one. And so if you're an avionics user and you have interest in DO-178, be sure and let us know. We're expanding the algorithms in our DO-178 boundary as we speak. So, be sure and let us know if you're interested in that. And, that's the quick version of the roadmap. And, thanks a lot for hearing us out on it. But I'd like to open it up, questions, if there's input on items that we covered or didn't cover that you're curious about, or if you have ideas that we could integrate into our next year roadmap, now's a good time to let us know.
Alrighty, we have one question here, which is, I understand that wolfSSL provides a wrapper for OpenSSL interface, but it appears it's not catching up with OpenSSL progress. Any plans in this area?
Yeah, we do want to keep it up to date. The OpenSSL interface is huge, 1,000 functions, and we currently have wrappers for the 1,000 most common. And it's true that OpenSSL is changing their interface a little bit and not allowing direct access to some of the opaque, or that should be opaque, members of structures, for example. But that's actually okay for us. We don't want to have to divulge or expose those kind of details in our wrapper. So some of the new areas that OpenSSL is moving to makes it a little easier for us to do the wrappers. So we don't look at that necessarily as a negative thing, changing the way that OpenSSL is doing some of their APIs. In fact, we think it'll make it easier for us and our users to keep up with it going forward.
Okay, and so far, those are the only questions we have. If you have any more questions on the wolfSSL roadmap, please contact us at support@wolfssl.com, and we'd be happy to answer any questions or comments that come our way. As I said at the start of this presentation, this webinar is recorded and will be sent to you via a follow-up email after today. And don't forget to follow us on all of our social medias. We are at wolfSSL on Twitter, Instagram,